Hey gang, Mocha Boy here, welcome back, and as always, thanks for tuning back in. So what I've got on the repair bench today is a Shargeek Storm 2, I think this is a 100 watt portable power bank. This belongs to one of the riders that ride in our crew. I guess he had it in his bag, and either it fell out of the bag or whatever, but what ended up happening was the the positive power pin out of the output jack, this is the DC output jack, broke off. So it's possible to, maybe glue that back in and solder it back into position, but we figured it was safer to just, get the replacement part, which we did find on Digikey, and I'll post the part number there. First thing that I can tell you about this is it's a bear to get open. It's open right now, but I wanted to show you. I wanted to kind of reverse the process so that you could see, because I saw some of the teardown videos, and they left out a couple of steps, which kind of stumped me. First of all, it looks pretty simple when everything is put together. You have these 4 screws, that are right there, and then the 2 things that are standing in your way of popping this off of here are these 2 press fit parts, and these are really tricky to maneuver out of the chassis. Best piece of advice that I can give you is take note of where the detentes are, where these little clips are. You're not going to be pulling here on those clips. The best point for you to get purchase on this piece here is right in the corner. Find your favorite spudger or very sharp kind of micro screwdriver, and then it's going to look something like this. And just get your spudger in that corner and just keep levering it out until you can get one corner popped. As soon as you get one corner popped, then the rest will come out easy. But this took me probably a good 15 or 20 minutes of just noodling around until I finally got that out. The second piece is the button, and again, the button actually requires a couple of screwdrivers because it starts to come out and then it locks into position, and then you got to grab like a second screwdriver. Again, for this, no real secret here. Just try not to brute force this way in. It will come out. As you can see here, there's the one square locking tab there, and then what looks like a friction tab there. So just take your time, keep levering it out. If you have to kind of walk it out with 2 screwdrivers, then that's it. So the next big thing, or the next big puzzle, was how to remove the main board from from this vertical PCB over here. And when everything's together, I mean, it's pretty obvious now how it all goes together. You've got this little JST connector here, and then an XT30 connector there. But the way that you separate these things is just grab, like a little popsicle stick or something, and then I'm not going to do it here, but something that's non-conductive, obviously, and just push this board out that way. That'll, you can take the JST out, but then, to push or to remove this from there, you just need to push this until that XT30 disengages. So, and then once that's out, the only thing that's left is, it's just a little piece of hair there, is the PCB, and you've got the thermal, the thermal pad, which provides a little bit of, I mean, look at the thickness of that. That's got to be 2.5, maybe 3 millimeters. It's got to provide, quite a bit of vibration protection for this board. So anyway, the game plan for this is we're going to flip this upside down. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 posts on here, and what we're going to use, this is a very special formulation of solder. It's called just SMD rework or reflow solder. This has an extremely, what makes this interesting is that it's got an extremely low melting point. So what you do is you put it over the posts, you heat it up to like 350, 360, 370 degrees centigrade, and then it'll stay molten for about 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 seconds, depending on how hot you got it. And what you do is you apply little bits of it to each of the posts, and then you just keep working your soldering iron over each of the posts until they're all more or less molten at the same time. And then as you're doing that, you just start to gently lever this part out. Now once all that's done, we're going to want to make sure that we remove that solder because the other property of it is that it's very brittle. So you don't want to have to rely on that mixing in with your good solder, once you do the final repair. So I've got some solder braid here. This is going to, I'll just go in, you'll dip this in a little bit of flux, go in with your soldering iron and just clean up the pads to make sure there's nothing left. Now for the solder I'm using, nothing fancy here, it's just some 6040 MG Chemical solder, general electronics grade solder. The other thing that I'm using here is Amtech Flux. This is the NC559. You buy a bottle of this on Amazon, it'll probably last you the rest of your life. Very important to have, flux around, for rework, either just to repair things or to clean things up or just to make soldering easier altogether. So, anyway, that's the plan. I've got to get a little bit more equipment put in place to just get this so that it's immobilized, and then I'll come back and we'll get the surgery underway. All right, so we're going to get this going on up to about. Oops, wrong way. Poking some holes earlier at really low temperatures. So we're going to start off at about, we'll start off at about 360. You want it a little hotter than you would normally work because, like I said, you need to be able to have that solder stay molten for a little bit longer than you would normally work. So I'm just going to get some flux on here. This will make the solder flow a little bit easier into those pads, and then, like I said, I'm just going to keep hitting it with heat until it releases. This. Okay. All right, good. I'll put that there. Oops. For my soldering iron, I'm using a TS100. It's a 60 watt iron with chisel tip. Is that knife edge tip? Sorry. Okay. And this is a nice tip just because it's so big. There are bigger tips, but this one does just fine. So, okay, got a little bit there. Now you got to remember, a lot of times, especially on boards as nice as this, they're probably using electronics grade solder, which is unleaded, and that's going to be like that 95 or 98% formulation. It's very, very requires some really high temperatures to get, to go molten. So I'm going to bump that up to 370. And then what we're going to do is just kind of keep working these until I get the sense. See, one of the weird things about what's happening right now is that the solder's balling up, which tells me that it's not mixing in with the solder that's there. It's just kind of hanging out on the surface. Keep doing that. Okay, I felt it pop just a little. Okay, starting to feel it pop. And like I said, don't try to pull the whole part out at one time. This is a game of millimeters. You're just trying to pull, the posts out just a little bit at a time. Yeah, I hear it kind of creaking. I don't know if you can hear that. All right, that one's pretty much released, and boom, you're done. All right. Now, don't try this at home, kids. Something I saw on a Chinese repair video once. Wouldn't advocate for it normally, but this is a pretty tough board. This is just a really fast way of getting rid of the solder. But I know there are some of you kind of shrieking in horror right now at the thought of slamming a PCB. But this is the internet, and everyone on the internet's a professional, right? Alright, so that was fairly straightforward. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time cleaning this up. Let's see, I need... And this is where people kind of trip up sometimes. They just whip out the braid, but they forget that the trick with making braid work is dipping it in flux. Just that extra little bit of flux allows you to really drink up the the solder that's in those holes. So if you're having trouble, you know, pulling solder out of a hole, just, you know, hit it with a little bit of flux and keep working side to side. I don't have my fan going. All right, let's see. Can I see light? Another thing you can do, which is kind of interesting. This is a tool I very rarely use, but you know, it's one of those things when, you know, when there's a need for it, it's the only job. It's the only tool that'll do the job. So this is a Engineer SSO2 solder sucker. And the way this works is you load it like that, and then that's your release button. And the tricky part with this is, what I like to do is, how are we going to do this? Maybe we'll try it like this. This is going to get a little weird. So I like to come at it from, you know, two different sides, and what we're going to do is I'm going to, okay, let me just get this positioned. Finger on the button, and then so what I'm doing is I'm heating up from one side and I'm going to suck it through the other side. So 1, 2, 3, pop. And I think we got it. Let's see. Yep. I don't know if you can see that hole, but it's, yeah, that's what it does. Solder sucker. So that worked out pretty well. Let's see if this part seats. Alright, so...
It's like little straws.
Yeah. That should be enough. Maybe? Not quite.
Almost.
No, there you go. Didn't want to force it. Make sure it's mated. Through a hole there. Okay, now one more thing I'm going to do before we get this locked in is I like to clean off the residue from the first application of the flux. Get some clean flux on there, and then we should just be able to solder these in, and we'll be done. Alright, that should be good. Make sure it's seated. Okay. Flux. All right, there you go. That should do it. And we're done. That's it. Oops. Just slide the camera with my head. Yeah, so that's it. Should be done. You can just zoom out and then get this put back together and then give it a test run. So looking good. Alright. So this part's always a little scary because you know, you're dealing with a live circuit here. I mean, the power bank is active, so just watch what you're dropping. Alright. Let's see here. That's going to go into there. It's going to go there. This is going to energize the PCB. Good. Oh, I got to plug something in here. Probably need that. Oh, there you go. Back on. All right, we're in business. All right, so now comes the tricky part. Now we got to get it all back together. Let's see. I need to find some screws.